Howdy folks, and welcome back to the channel, welcome back to another tutorial episode of War in the East 2. As you can see from the title, this tutorial will cover three topics which are, in my opinion, linked to one another. The first topic will deal with the concept of theater boxes. Theater boxes are a simplified representation of what was going what was going on around the Eastern Front, and also two aspects of the Eastern Front which are not being directly controlled by both players. What was going around the Eastern Front, what was going on around the Eastern Front was basically the other events occurring in the, let's say, European theater of World War II, namely the war in North Africa, the invasion of Italy, and of course the Normandy landings. While the two aspects which cannot be controlled on the Eastern Front, but that played a crucial role on the Eastern Front, were on one hand the partisan warfare, which cannot be controlled by the Soviets but can only be, let's say, counteracted by the Axis, and the war in the extreme north, namely the war between the Axis and the Soviets in the Finnish theater. So theater boxes, the way they work is that you need to keep a certain amount of ground and air units in order to fulfill a certain combat value threshold. This threshold cannot go below a certain value, but it can go above the minimum required threshold. And if you play with, even if you play with the enhanced player theater box control, you still cannot, let's say, pull everything out of Western France or from the Far East and then just overwhelm your enemy with sheer numbers. No, you cannot. You need to leave some a minimum amount of divisions and air group units in their specific boxes for, let's say, balancing and also for historical reasons. The Soviets never really redeployed, for instance, everything from the Far Eastern, and so did the Germans. So both factions do have access to theater boxes. The only common theater box is the theater box of the National Reserve, and this is the theater box in which all of the units that we've seen already in the past, like ground units, but also AOGs, the air operational groups, and also air group units will arrive and will be sent there when you move them from the map to the reserve theater box. And here units which have been destroyed or depleted will be reconstituted and also will undergo training. And since we're talking about theater boxes and the reserve, if you go on the railway mode, you see that here there's an X colored in yellow, and if you hover the mouse, it says reserve arrival hex. Whenever you move any unit, any ground unit from the reserve theater boxes to the map, and you say send it to the map, the unit will spawn here. You can change it, although you cannot set any random hex as a theater box arrival reserve hex. This has to be at least, I think, 8, if they didn't change it, either 8 or 10 hexes away from the first enemy controlled hex, and has to be on a hex containing a railway that is repaired and connected to the national railway network. Like, we can set the city of Torun as the arrival hex of units coming from the reserve theater box, if you wish. And I mentioned about the other theater boxes. The Axis does have the Western Europe, I call it the Western European theater box, the Norwegian, the Finnish, the Soviet garrison, the North African, the Italian, and the Balkans, and the theater boxes are listed here. And the Soviets do have the Northern Front, which is the Soviet version of the Finnish theater box for the Axis, the Transcaucasian theater box, and then the Far Eastern theater box. The, let's say, information that you get from the theater boxes can be quite complicated, because believe me, it's not written in the manual, and it took me a long time to understand the numbers shown here. And also I want to thank the 3 users in the forum, K62, Viderok, and another guy that I forgot his name now, I'm sorry about it, who really made a very nice thread about understanding theater boxes. So the basic info box looks like this. You have on the upper part the name of the theater box, and then here you have the numbers of the total number of men, guns, armored fighting vehicles, and planes. And then you have here these combat intensity values. There are 6 levels of combat intensity. Can be none, very low, low, medium, high, or very high. The intensity, the intensity of the combat will affect the attrition and the losses that the elements in this theater box will suffer over the course of the turn, and this is is automatically controlled to mimic the fighting going on, I don't know, in Western Europe, in Italy, in North Africa, or in Finland. And then you have here 3 sheets. And before going on to the status, let's have a look at the other 2 sheets. Basically, what these 2 sheets are giving you is the list of all the units present in this theater box. Now, I have to mention, I'm using the editor, and in the editor you will see literally all the units, even the units which will arrive with a delay. So if a unit is scheduled to arrive on, I don't know, July 5th, 1943, you will see it here in the editor, but you will not see it in the actual scenario of the campaign. Like, for instance, the 1st SS Panzer Corps, it has a delay of 110 turns, so it should arrive on August 1st, 1943, but still we can see it here anyway, because I'm using the editor right now. And the units are divided into every category. You have HQs, armored units, mechanized, motorized infantry, airborne artillery, anti-tank, anti-aircraft, motorized mountain infantry, self-propelled guns, engineer, construction, rocket units, security, machine gun battalions, and then even the air landing units. And you see that some units do have this pink color on the name and also around it. These are the units classified as locked. A locked unit cannot be moved from the theater box, even if the player does have the enhanced player theater box control. These are historically units that never ever went on the Eastern Front, like for instance the famous German 7th Army, which is the one that faced the Normandy landings in 1944. And for the air units, is the same. You have all the classification of let's say fighter bombers, night fighter, tactical and level bombers, recon and transport, and patrol aircraft. And one thing that I need to introduce now, and it will come up later, is the tooltip box that comes out when you hover. Exactly. You see here I am highlighting the 260th Infantry Division. This division has a combat value of 6.8. It has a full complement because it has the table of organization and equipment set at 100%, and it has a morale of 75. And you also see below the labeling withdraw. And then you have a number and written map. Now, withdrawing units means that those units are scheduled to be moved between this theater box and other theater boxes. In this specific case, The 260th Infantry Division is scheduled to arrive on the map on turn number 3. If you highlight other divisions, like if, for instance, the 389th Infantry Division will move from Western Europe to the map on turn 47, from the map back to Western Europe on turn 94, and then again on turn 120 back to the map. And also, let's keep in mind this CV of 6.8, because now things are getting complicated. These are the general information that you get from the theater box. Ground, air, day, and air night are the requirements, or actually the let's say the elements that you need to keep in the theater box. And we'll see in a second some more details. Combat divisions, honestly, I did not understand what is the meaning of that, because I have more than 49 combat divisions, and this does not seem to be related to the table of organization and equipment, nor to the combat values of the units. So as soon as I find out what does it mean, I will pin it in the comment section here below. Freight, this is the number of the first number indicates the amount of freight received, and this is the amount of freight that is required. And the same is true for trucks. The first number indicates the amount of trucks received in the past logistics phase, and here is the amount of trucks required by all the elements in the theater box. And then this is quite self-explanatory: ground elements received and aircraft received. That doesn't need any explanation. One thing before diving into the details is that there are some differences in terms of supply priority and theater boxes, because they are all set at the supply priority of level 4, but the North African theater box, which has a supply priority of level 3. These, I think, can be changed, as well as the percentage of TOE of the units in theater boxes can be changed, and this can be changed via the commander support, but we will see it in a dedicated tutorial. Now let's have a look at these 3 lines here. Now, ground, air, and air day and air night are the requirements that you need to fulfill in order to have enough, let's say, combat power, even though, yeah, it's called combat value, but I call it combat power, in the theater box. If you click on this arrowhead, you see here a subdivision of several elements that contribute to this, let's say, ground, oh my god, requirements. Yeah, sorry, I forgot the name. Here you have the total combat value of the ground requirement, and here is what is the minimal requirement for the ground elements in this theater box. So you have a total of 397.42, and the minimal is 410, and what you have is 96% of what you should have, or what is required. So far so clear. And then you have ground base. This is the base value that makes up the bulk, so 100% of the ground, let's say, elements of the ground requirements. And this number here, from what I understood, is the sum of all these combat values of all the ground units present here. Ground units that, however, do not include artillery, engineer, and construction, and also flak, low, and high. Briefly, the difference between flak and low is the caliber of the guns. If it's, let's say, below 37 millimeters, is classified as flak low. If it's above 37 millimeter, is classified as flak high. And if you go on the AA guns units, you see here, yeah, like you see here, flak L 2.1, so low, and H high 6.1. And let's go back to status. So in this column here, this is the combat value that is being used. And this combat value is being used based on what you have. It's really annoying that there are no titles here, but this is what is being used, and this is what you have. Now, let's make it easy. The construction units contribute to just 5% of the total ground combat value of the ground requirement. And if you calculate the 5% of 289, you get 14.45 units, let's say. And if you increase the ground base value by adding either infantry or motorized or mechanized or panzer divisions, you will increase also the, let's say, the usage, which is limited to just 5% of this value of the construction units. And the maximum that you can use of the construction units is 25.98, unless you bring in more construction units. So hopefully this is clear. If it's not, drop me a comment or a question here below, and I'll be happy to answer for you. For air day and air night, nobody understands what is the base requirement for this one. I know that if you assign new fighter units, it will drastically increase the base number here. If you assign, in this case for air day, night fighters, you will just contribute to 15% of what is of the total fighter base value, and so on and so forth. Flak high, 101% means that it's unlimited, so all what you have contributes to the value of air day. And the same is true for air night. In this case, air night, of course, night fighters contribute to 100% of the... They give 100% of their combat value to this air night requirement, and then you have just 15% of the fighters, and again 10% of the low flak low, and complete commitment of the flak high. Also keep in mind that different theater boxes do have different requirements. Like the Norwegian theater box does have a naval requirement that is based mostly and exclusively on, well, not exclusively, but mostly on patrol aircraft. The Finnish theater box, like for instance, does only have ground and air day requirements. So always keep in mind which are the requirements for each theater box. And I mentioned that theater boxes also simulate the parallel events to the war on the Eastern Front, like for instance the war in North Africa. And related to this, I have to mention the event system. The event system contains either some let's say historical and flavorish events, to just say, okay, and on this day Roosevelt signed this document, blah blah blah, and on this day Stalin issued order famous 227, and so on and so forth. But there are also events that mimic, for instance, the Allied bombing campaign against Western France and Germany. And as a consequence of this event, you will get a random factory damaged across Germany. And for instance, you can mitigate the damage done by these events by allocating more flak units into Western Europe, for instance. And also events contribute to the unfolding of World War II. One of the, I would say, the biggest difference between Hearts of Iron 4 and War and the East 2, but one of the biggest differences is that in War and the East 2, you cannot change the tide. Like, even if you, let's say, you commit 200% of the ground, air, day, and naval assets that are compared to what is required, you will never be able to win the Battle of El Alamein. What do I mean with that? I mean that in these theater boxes, like for instance the one in North Africa, which is active because in 1941 there was the war in North Africa, if you go below this threshold here, you get some like I call them negative events, because these negative events will give you penalties in victory points and also in administrative points, and they will push forward the events of the war in North Africa. So maybe instead of having the Battle of El Alamein in October 1942, you can have it already in September, because the game mimics that you have less troops, so the Allies and the battles are going on much faster, with a much faster rate in favor of the Allies. If you have more than what is required, there is a chance of gaining one victory point and one administrative point at a turn, and there is, I think, a 15% of chance every turn to push back the events, for instance, of the North African War. Like, you can delay the Battle of El Alamein from October to, I don't know, November or even December 1942. But be aware, there is no way you can escape your fate. So you had better win the war on the Eastern Front as soon as possible, my friends. And since I also would like to talk about let's say reinforcements and movement between theater boxes, let's see if I can do it already from the editor. So one big difference: if you play without the enhanced player theater box control, you will only have access to this one. This is the National Reserve theater box, and you can only play around with the units in present in this theater box. Like in this case, the Führer Big Light infantry battalion, which is already here. If you play with this mode on, then you can also interfere with other units, which, for instance, were never supposed to be moved from the from other theater boxes. Let me just check if I see some. Yeah, like the 159th Reserve Infantry Division. If you right-click on it, you see here these options: transfer unit to, and then you have map, Italy, North Africa, Norway, and these are all the other theater boxes. And here you have the transfer delay. So how many turns have to elapse before the selected unit will be sent to the final destination? While if you play with this, you see, unit transfer is restricted by game options. There is one limitation in using the enhanced player TB control, besides the minimum threshold of the units. Also, units which already have a pre-scheduled transfer, they will still be transferred to their final destination. Like if you send the 355th Infantry Division to Finland, regardless of what happens on turn 104, this unit will arrive on the map. And if you want to have an idea of this exchange and movement of units, you can go on this sheet, show reinforcements withdrawal turn schedule. Sorry, schedule. No, not schedule. And here you have all of the possible options to visualize every turn what comes to the map, what comes to the reserve theater box, and what goes away from the map, or what gets removed and disbanded. Now, the difference between removing a unit and disbanding one is that when you remove the unit, all of the elements of this unit will vanish. They will disappear. While when a unit gets disbanded, all the elements of the unit will end up in the production pool so that they can be used to reinforce other existing units. And here below you have three filters. You can filter by nation, you can filter the units by formation type, and you can filter according to the type of movement or transfer, like reinforcements. Reinforcements are the ones that arrive out of nowhere, either to the map or to the theater box, the national reserve. Transfer is when you move units between theater boxes. Disbandment and removal we have already discussed. And you can also have a look here at the renames in case you want to see what changes name, in case you're wondering, oh my god, where is the 5th Light Africa Division? Oh my god, no, it's now the 21st Panzer Division. Okay, you don't have to worry about it. And here you have the condition. So in case the unit renaming occurs on a specific turn, if it occurs when the unit gets destroyed or when the unit gets depleted. And besides units, you can also check air groups, and the same applies here, and also air operational groups. And yeah, that's it. It was a bit long, but I wanted to condensate three short topics into one. And as always, my friends, thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for supporting the channel. And yeah, we are nearly at the end of the basic tutorial series. And if you're still interested, stay tuned for more, because in the next tutorial we will talk about the weather. Until then, I wish you all the best, and yeah, stay tuned until the next episode.